This conference will now be recorded.
It's 6:05, 6:05, let's start the meeting. We have 3 people online. So tonight, we will not be talking about the INHS project. It was tabled last night at the planning board meeting, therefore we're not able to discuss or speak about the INHS variances tonight. So tonight's meeting will only be about the Home Central variance for their parking and the Owego Hose Team Steamer Building on North End. So what we'll do is we'll start off with the Home Central project. Last month, we talked about this project. This month, we did post for a public hearing on the variance to the parking. Basically, the variance they're asking for is the fact that the code says for every 100 square feet of building they have, which is a 3,400 square foot building, they need 1 parking space for every 100 foot. So that would be 34 parking spaces. They're asking for a variance to be able to make it 8 or 9.
It could probably end up being about 10.
Okay, so about 9 to 10 parking lot, and 1 space will be for handicap. So I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. It is 6:06. And anybody have any comments about the Home Central variance for parking?
Where is it?
So and they plan on putting it in the building at the corner of Fox Street and Central. And it'll be to the north of that building where there's a white shed right now currently that they'll be knocking down and putting the parking space in place of that white shed.
Very nice.
Is there any other comments on Home Central? No? Anybody online have any comments about the Home Central parking variance?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I will now go ahead and close the public hearing. 6:07. Okay. So we've already determined that the seeker part 2 was done by the planning board. And Dick, last month you made a motion to approve Home Central parking lot with 8 spaces and 1 handicap. Do you still agree with that motion?
I think they've
Yeah.
updated to show 10 to 12.
Okay. So you want to revise your motion? So we'll make it to approve.
Am I correct in
Yep,
seeing that?
I think it's going to be close to 10, including 1 handicap space.
So 11 total.
Let's say 10.
Okay.
I don't want to promise more than possible.
So approve Home Central. Area variance. For parking lot. north of the building with 10 spaces, and that will include one handicap. You agree with that motion, Dick? Would you like me to read it again?
Yeah, you can read the whole thing again, although I do think we need to probably go through the 5 things.
You want to go back through the 5 questions
So
again?
that people can, yeah.
Okay.
Although I may have just said I agree, I'll put down what the county said.
We agreed to.
Mhm.
Then we agreed to, the planning board.
Yeah, I think that's what I,
Right, so
that we
that's
agree
the,
with what the county said for the answers to all those questions,
Right.
what their rationale was.
So we don't need.
But we can still state that.
the 5 questions.
Yeah. Just so that it's on record.
Okay, so we'll go through the 5 questions.
I have them, I have what the county answered.
Okay, so you want to go through what the county answered first and then go through what the,
Well, we'll read the question, we'll see what the county said and say that we agree or disagree. Whatever.
so question 1, will an undesirable change be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties be created by granting the variance? Parking, the county's answer was parking. No, this is a mixed-use area that already has commercial uses, so there will be no change to the neighborhood character. You agree? You agree? Okay, I agree. Can the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance? No, there is no other space for off-street parking on this small lot. Do you agree? You agree? I do too. And the area variance is the area variance substantial? Yes, the area variance request is 74% reduction, which that will actually now change because it was 8 or 9 before, now we're up to 10, so. Do you agree with that, that it's substantial?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so. Will the proposed variance have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district? No, this renovated building and sign will be more aesthetically pleasing and improve the physical appearance of the neighborhood. Do you agree, Nick?
Yes, I agree.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. Joyce, is that you on there?
Yes,
Okay, it just says caller 1, I didn't know. Do you agree with those answers so far?
yes.
Okay.
Screen to vote.
Well, she ain't voting right now, she's just answering yes.
Yeah, just one.
Yeah. That's- Joyce, is there any way you can put yourself on video?
I can't figure out how to download the app. My Wi-Fi isn't that great for whatever reason tonight, so I'm having trouble getting on. So the best I could do is dial in.
All right, because if you don't put yourself on video, you're not gonna be able to vote.
Okay, I'll keep trying.
All right, thank you.
We have enough. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And 5th, the last question, was the alleged difficulty self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision, but not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance? yes, the applicant was aware of the zoning code when they submitted the application for this project. Do you agree with that answer?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Joyce, do you agree with that answer?
Yes.
And yes from me. Okay. So then, do you want to go through any other questions? Or are we set with the motion now?
I think we're set.
Alright, so the motion that I have here is to approve Home Central area variance for parking lot north of new building with 10 spaces, including one handicap. Okay, is there a motion?
Want to add the conditions from the counties. And we talked about previously, but it has to do with complying with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations and getting all state and local permits, licenses, and registrations
So we're
required.
adding here.
We're-
Should that be a standard thing? Or just plug in one of these?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard.
Me. Set forth by the county.
It's all state, county, local.
Well, I mean, I don't know,
They have 3 conditions listed in there.
and conditions.
Yeah, we'll just turn it off to the record. So the conditions are that the applicant obtain all required state, county, and local permits, licenses, and registrations to perform any of the work. That the applicant complies with any comments and requirements submitted by the New York State Department of Transportation Region 9 Site Plan Review Committee. And 3, that the applicant add or include a handicap space to the parking lot in accordance with the New York State Fire Prevention Building Code.
So would you like me to read the motion one more time?
With all the conditions and everything.
No,
Here.
so basically I just
No.
did the last sentence that said, and meets all 4 conditions that the county set forth in their 239.
Just like to say one other thing to the people that are out there. Normally when we are doing this, in the process, there's some discussion and things like that. So you come up with the rationale for why you are voting yes or no. And in this case, so the answers to the 3rd and 5th question are actually bad or not good. Substantial variance to substantial area variance. Big. It's not good in that they knew about it before they did this, as in it wasn't some thing that's got found out later that they had no control over or something like that. But the other 3 are good, and you have to consider the whole thing together and whether the positives outweigh the negatives, things like that, as the county has in this case too. And once again, we agree with them, talking about rehabilitating the building, having jobs, having spending money in their local time. So that, when you weigh all that stuff together, in my view, that's why I did that. Want to include this. Okay.
Okay. So does anybody second that?
I'll second it.
Sherry? Okay.
Oh, and computer.
Chairman second that. So we're gonna now vote on the area variance. And Dick, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Sherry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Joyce, Yes. That's one. All right, so that motion carries. As far as Home Central goes, that's all we had to discuss tonight and take care of. So you're all set. I'll get the stuff over to May.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great, thank you all very much.
I asked Joyce one thing. Joyce, can you hear me?
Yes.
So you're having trouble turning your video on, I assume?
I cannot get my camera on.
So does your web browser have a little padlock to the left?
Does it have a
A little padlock icon to the left of the URL, the website address near the top? You know, generally for like a secure site sort of thing and other things, a little padlock symbol. I think she was on the phone before with C01 and now she's on the computer. Joyce, are you on the computer now or cell phone?
I'm on the computer.
Well, if you don't see that, then I'm done. Sometimes the cell phone app, you have to go out the way. Right, so on some browsers under that padlock is a list of things that you can allow the window to use. But you can't. You have to proactively allow us to do.
It won't let me connect. I don't know.
Okay.
Is the variance from the requirements of the floodplain permit plan.
And if they have the people. Yeah, if you want. So for the steamer building, we're going to let the engineers make a short version of the presentation for the steamer building before we do anything with the public hearing.
Good evening. Michael Haas, representing the Bose Company, the whole company. As he, Pat is on, and Steve McMcElwain is on. Steve is with McElwain Engineering. We're working with them on this project for the Bose Company. Steve's responsible primarily for the building and structural components of the project, utilities as well. And Delta's handling all the site planning, elements of the project. We've taken the project to like a 90% completion of our construction drawings to date. So we have some more detailed plans. Don't need to share those with you, but we're moving ahead because we're trying to get the site improvements done this fall. We're trying to out our schedule. We've been in front of the county planning board. They referred us to the village, obviously. We've been in front of the village planning board twice now. And last night we received a declaration of proceeding. And then also we received site plan approval from the county. from the village planning board. In addition to that, they provided a recommendation, I believe, to the zoning board, saying that was put in the record. So here we are now at the zoning board. Hopefully this is our last step, our last stop process. And I feel we've done a thorough job in answering the criteria that's spelled out in the variance procedure under section 117.19. I don't know if we're going to go through those one at a time. And we've got obviously had Gavin here to give us some backup on those as well. But we've done our best to answer those criteria in an objective way so that you have a good understanding of how those relate to what we're doing. I'm going to give you a quick review. We don't have John Loftus isn't with us tonight, so we don't have the fire and brimstone and the flamboyant presentation techniques that John applies. I'll do my best to keep it lively. For those of you that if you can't see this, you want to step up a little closer. You're certainly welcome to sit up tighter to the easel here. So the project site is located on North Ave. It's adjacent to firehouse number 2. The old firehouse is literally right across the street here. And that fairly large open low point or low parcel that is being called now the art park, future art park, is adjacent to it immediately to the north. I think John's Fine Foods is kind of across the street. We're essentially across the street from the site as well. We looked at many options on this site. This site is broken down into basically the 3 parcels. There's a barber shop, another commercial building. Those have been torn down, obviously, and the site is remains vacant. It is located, obviously, in kind of on North Ave, considered kind of a gateway into Owego, and we feel that that's an important site to locate this. We work very closely with adjacent landowners, purchase the parcel, do actually a land swap in order to acquire these parcels, and the village has given them permission to expand an additional 30 feet into what is the art park site. And the reason for that, I think I explained it a month ago, is when we looked at different orientations of the building and the finished floor elevation that we needed to hold in order to be at the basically at the preferred elevation, finished floor elevation for flood purposes, the building sat pretty high on the site. And it would be very difficult to get this steamer, this 4,500 pound 1836 steamer that's being restored in and out of that building, even if it's hauled on a trailer. The steamer back then was meant to be pulled by manpower, 10 or 12 guys pulling it. Think about that, 4,500 pounds, that's over 2 tons. And that's how they did it. It was not very efficient, but the host companies is interested in using that technique, obviously, when they're showcasing this in perhaps in parades. Now, I don't know what the average age at of the members of the host company is, but you may want to rethink that after the first time you do it. But still the same, it's got to be maneuvered in and out of the building. And any kind of grade that exceeds 2 or 3%, it's going to make it that much harder to push. Think about pushing a car that's in neutral. You can get it started, but once you hit a little incline, you expend a lot more energy. So the building ended up being oriented in our preferred option with the overhead doors facing north. And what that did was it allowed us to basically create a driveway approach that's at least 3.5 times longer than if we came in straight off perpendicular to North Avenue, the overhead doors. It also gives more opportunity for staging of the steamer and the Stanford outside of the building on nice days if there's large classrooms, so classes of students here, for example, or there's just an event going on where it makes sense to bring it out of the building. That gives them the opportunity to do that. Also, there's a place to clean it, like they do the fire trucks. Oftentimes they bring them outside of the building to wash the wax, right? So that's primarily the reason we oriented it the way we did, and it allowed us to set the finished floor elevation. I think it's at 812.5, and the elevation for, is correct here, the base flood elevation is presently assumed to be, I'm sorry, base flood elevation is assumed to be 812.5. Our finished floor elevation is 813. That's to match the floor elevation of the firehouse next door. The building itself is 24 feet by 30 feet, 720 square feet. Mostly going to be window clad, large window panels, so that obviously it'll showcase the vehicles that are stored there, almost like a trophy case. And it'll be illuminated softly at night. And there's also pavements around, kind of this golden paving pattern here would be kind of a cobblestone pavement that will surround the building so people can actually view both vehicles from multiple angles. Okay. There's a little paved area between the firehouse and the steamer house that will allow them to park the vehicle, probably pickup truck in this trailer. And the trailer will be there again if they need to move these vehicles to another location. Out in front, we set the steamer house back, not quite as far as the firehouse. Firehouse is set back 15 feet, so 23, almost 24 feet from the back edge of the sidewalk. The steamer house is about close to maybe 17 or 18 feet back. It allows us to provide this large plaza area. The plaza area is where the Eternal Flame Memorial will be placed. That memorial is going to be masonry. It's going to be fairly large. It's going to be close to 10 feet tall. It'll have a bronze cauldron at the top, so almost as tall, if not taller than those sconce lights on the walls in this room. So that way we minimize any kind of vandalism. It's going to be difficult to climb it. It'll be clad in a bluestone veneer, and it'll have some inscriptions on the facade of that memorial. There's a diagram here. I have another drawing that I'll show you in a few minutes where it is in relation to the building. On the backside of the building, we've taken opportunity to terrace that with some low retaining walls. If you picture the site today, it slopes, front to back. And obviously, in order to create a level pad, place the building and have our driveway area and our walkways, our plaza, we needed to fill a little bit of the back half of the parcel that we're developing. And in order to mitigate that, and I have a sheer wall that's 7 or 8 feet tall, we're stepping it into two wall segments, if you will, that are close to 2.5 to 3 feet each. And then we got a little sloped grassy area between them. That wall will have a railing mounted on top of it. There's a code that's more than 2 feet. You want to have a protective railing. When the wall returns back towards the north, the height of that wall decreases as you get closer to North Ave. There's for like 6 inches high. They'll step back 10 or 12 feet from the sidewalk. We looked at the students' work for the art park. We tried to coordinate some of our efforts with them. We've shared our designs with them. We designed this wall, and we showed in our site plan with the potential that as that site or slope steps down into the art park, that same kind of wall block can be used to create an amphitheater, if they so choose, or whoever designs the art park chooses to place the amphitheater there. It's a good location. I think it's got good orientation, actually, and would actually function pretty well in relation to this venue, because this venue is more, some kind of a tourist attraction to a great degree, because again, what it's housing. Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one of only two of the steamers of this vintage that will be restored in North America. Is that what John's saying?
Well, once it's operational, it'll be the oldest operating in the United States, a title it had in 1987. And the harp frame makes it unique in the sense that they only made, I forget the number, a handful of them. And I believe we're aware of 3 other ones in existence today.
So it's still pretty unique. And it will become an attraction over time. And I think this gives it a nice setting, to preserve that and have it on display. The cross section that Steve produced, shows the steamer house. It's actually going to have a cupola, and in the cupola will be the bell, the old fire station that's also being restored and be placed up on the top. You can see the window expansions on the sides of the building. This gray line here, this is the finished floor elevation, and you can see how it slopes down to the sidewalk to North Ave. The dashed line is the existing grade. So as it falls back towards the rear of the property, you can see that there's necessity for some fill under the slab of the building and some additional fill in order to terrace the slope to get back to existing grade. So it gives you kind of a good idea of the profile. So you can see that the finished floor of the building is, sits up in relation to North Ave, a good foot and a half, at least a foot and a half. And really, if you make it any higher, then the driveway slope becomes a little less functional for maneuvering this steamer and Stanford in and out. So I'm open to questions. I don't want to get into too much detail at this point unless you have questions and you want to know a little bit more about the project, materials, colors, actually what's accommodating. You can also see the Eternal Flame Memorial in relation to the building. Nice scale, pretty good size. You'll have a pretty obvious presence, especially at night when that flame is flickering at the top of that memorial. So I think I'll turn it over to the attorney, Chairman. We're going to be addressing those criteria. We're going to be talking through that. So in detail, or
At least to start, I think what we'll have, so just so that everyone's kind of on the same page, there's 2 pieces to doing variances for the special use permit. There's a bunch of factors that we look at in terms of whether or not we're going to grant the variance under the village code. And then there's also conditions for granting variances from requirements on the special use permit for the floodplain. So we're first going to address whether or not the conditions are first met, and then we'll move into the factors for the board to consider as part of deciding whether or not to grant the variance.
Okay, so before we do that, though, I need to open up a public hearing on the area, the variance for floodplain development and special use permit for the steamer building. And we'll open that now, which is 6:39. So does anybody have any comments? Anybody like to speak? Anybody online like to say anything?
Jeff, does the board, or Mr. Chairman, does the board need a overview of the program we envision, not only for the steamer and the steamer house and the high school program, or did John cover that last month? Would it benefit the board to hear that, or are you good?
I'm good. We heard a lot last month.
Dick?
I'm good.
No, we're good. We heard that last month from John.
Okay, very good.
Joyce, you're not on there, are you?
It looks like she fell off.
No. Okay. So, in seeing nobody wanting to make any comment, I will close the public hearing now. 6:40. And now we will go over and discuss the questions or requirements for the area variance.
So the first thing I'm going to discuss with the board is whether or not the conditions for variances under section 117-20 of the code are met for purposes of issuing a variance from the requirements of the floodplain protection law that the village has. First, we have the applicant responses as well. So first, we have to look at no variance shall be issued within any designated floodway if an increase in flood levels during the base flood discharge would result. Variances shall only be issued upon a determination that the variance is the minimum necessary considering the flood hazard to afford relief. And then moving into F, variances shall only be issued upon written justification of 1, a showing of good and sufficient cause, 2, a determination that failure to grant the variance would result in exceptional hardship to the applicant, and 3, a determination that the granting of variance will not result in increased flood heights, additional threats to public safety, extraordinary public expense, great nuisances, cause fraud on or victimization of the public, or conflict with existing local laws or ordinances. In addition, there is 12 factors for the board to consider as part of deciding whether or not to grant the variance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the applicant's responses to each of these factors, as well as that 3-factor condition test that I just talked about. So the first question for the board, the applicant was, what danger the materials, what's the danger that materials may be swept onto other land to the injury of others? The applicant responded that the building will be secured to a foundation. Risk of it being swept away is minimal. The steamer engine weighs 4,500 pounds, and the Sanford Scrooge truck weighs 6,000 pounds. So the risk of either of them being swept away is minimal as well. Finally, there's no hazardous materials that will be stored on site, so no hazardous materials will be ending up on someone else's property. 2, whether there will be a danger to life and property due to flooding or erosion damage. So the building is non-residential and non-occupied. Building is adjacent to the Owego Fire Department in case of emergency. And finally, the steamer wheel height is 6 feet. The bottom of the steamer is 2 feet off the ground. Sanford wheel height is 3 feet high. Bottom of Sanford is 1 foot and 5 inches off the ground. Both bodies of the apparatus will be 2 feet above base flood elevation. Third, the susceptibility to the proposed facility and its contents to flood damage and the effect of such damage on the individual owner. So, Owego Fire Station 2, immediately south of the proposed elevation, the proposed location did not take on water in 2011, 500-year flood. Station 2 is at base flood elevation level. Utilities will be above ground. Materials will be flood resistant. Flood vents will be installed. The hose team, owner of the building per agreement with the village, will have insurance for the agreement. Both steam fire engine and hose truck were in Central Station during 2011 flood. Central took on water, but neither were damaged. Hose team personnel will move the apparatus to higher ground if threatened with a significant flood. For engineers, 6 inches above base flood elevation with flood vents will cause less displacement of water than 24 inches above base flood elevation. 4, the importance of the services provided by the proposed facility to the community. Bolsters the North Avenue corridor in the village, improving and abandoning property while bringing foot traffic and tourists to the business district. Supports the village's commitment to historic preservation, maintaining the downtown charm and character that appeals to residents and visitors. Enhances the village's gateway to historic downtown, complements downtown revitalization initiatives, efforts underway in the village, all while costing the village and legal taxpayers nothing in restoration, construction, and maintenance costs, as the host team is funding it. Provides a unique setting and backdrop for the Owego Fire Department's existing elementary school fire prevention program, which is designed to prevent illness, sickness, and other unsafe conditions for children as part of the department's mission of saving lives. Provides setting for STEAM team partnership with area high schools and students interested in learning about STEAM technology and its relevance today. Host team will not be able to accomplish the impact that this project can provide at an alternate location. Necessity of the facility of any waterfront location not applicable. The availability of alternative locations for the proposed use which are not subject to flooding or erosion control. More than 90% of the village is in the floodplain. Alternative location outside the floodplain is a challenge. Purchase of property outside the floodplain is not part of the project budget, as a cost the host team would prefer to avoid. No other alternative sites are viable from an economic standpoint. Land swap with applied technology manufacturing land use agreement with the village of Owego for the current property is already in place. The site complements the Owego Fire Department footprint on North Avenue, which includes Owego Central Fire Station and Owego Fire Station number 2. Site planning looked at 6 options before settling on this plan and maximizes the space afforded while taking into account the limitations of the location. 7, the compatibility of the proposed use with existing anticipated development. For the county planning board, this proposed use is in harmony with the neighborhood, which is comprised mainly of mixed use, religious, and commercial uses, and also the original fire station and newer fire truck garage. New structure will add to the aesthetics of the entire area and provide a logical transition to the new and adjacent village park, which is now designed as part of the DRI. The relationship of the proposed use to the comprehensive plan and floodplain management program of that area. Per the floodplain administrator, the building will not result in increased flood heights, additional threats to public safety, extraordinary public expense, create nuisances, cause fraud on or victimization of the public, or conflict with existing local laws or ordinances. 9, the safety of access to the property in time of flood for ordinary emergency vehicles. The building is located next to the Owego Fire Station. Access to property in times of flood should not be required. What is the cost to local governments and the dangers associated with conducting search and rescue operations during periods of flooding? Non-occupied building, search and rescue operations should not be required. What are the expected heights, velocity, duration, rate of rise, and sediment transport of the floodwaters and effects of wave action, if applicable, expected at the site? 500-year floodwaters did not reach the building next door. Owego Fire Station number 2 is at base flood elevation. The cost of providing governmental services during and after flood conditions, including search and rescue operations, maintenance and repair of public utilities and facilities such as sewer, gas, electrical, and water systems, and streets and bridges. Minimal, if at all, see previous responses. And in response to the 3-factor test, their response to showing a good and sufficient cause, flood mitigation measures in place, utilities are above ground, flood vents for the building made of flood-proof or flood-resistant materials. Neighboring building, Owego Fire Station number 2, did not take on water in the 2011 500-year flood. No threat to life. It's a non-occupied building. Property in building, steam fire engine, and hose truck will move to higher ground in the event of a significant flood threat. 2, With the determination of failure to grant the variance would result in exceptional hardship to the applicant. Applicant responded, significant work on project and investment has already been made to include land transfer negotiation agreement with Applied Technology Manufacturing and land use agreement between host team and village of Owego. Old barber shop demolition and removal, they've already spent $5,400.89. Site tree removal, $1,000, and site plan and building development, $6,270. Finally, steam engine restoration design reverts apparatus back to its original version of being hand-pulled, moving 4,500 pound pieces, an additional 2 feet slope from North Ave by hand would be extremely difficult. And finally, in response to whether or not the variance will result in increased flood heights, additional threats to public safety, extraordinary public expense, great nuisances, cause fraud, or victimization of the public, conflict with existing local laws or ordinances, the applicant responded, FEMA flood administrator concurs with this statement that none of those things would happen. Does the board have any questions? Any of those responses?
Jerry, Dick, you have any questions?
No.
Does the board have any discussions about those points?
Has anybody got any issue with any of the answers or need a clarification on anything? Dick? You go.
There's part of the exceptional hardship of the applicant, the fact that the location allows them to put on the various programs they want to put on, in connection with both the fire station as well as the schools.
By all means, yes. I mean, the location that we brought out, that, you know, you got 2 other buildings that are fire related. This now makes it kind of a campus, if you will, of fire related structures. And it certainly provides the opportunity for tours and other, other programs and events to occur at any of these sites.
And for the other options, the other site options, for those significant distance away, so it would impair the ability to utilize the site in the same way.
Certainly, yeah. I don't know, I can't speak for Pat, how many other sites they looked at. This one was certainly the most compatible with their program. As we alluded to earlier, there are a number of programs already in place and in discussion with the school, for example, to host historic programs here. And its location in relation to the other buildings is important. And its location here, it's accessible from the schools, for example, and certainly from the core of the downtown as well. So if there's an event, say Strawberry Fest, they can still partner with the Strawberry Fest committee in hosting something here, whether the parade starts here or it's a venue for chicken barbecue, however that falls into place. The location is the most ideal, certainly for the host element.
Yeah, I would add that, so we did look at another location over on the flats. But, we ran into the same issues as we hear, floodplain. It's not on the main drag. And it really doesn't accomplish a lot of the things we want to accomplish if it's in the flats. Certainly, I think the flats neighborhood would support and, it being down there. But being at Central Fire Station, there's a reason why Central Fire Station is called Central Fire Station. It's in the central of the village. So this, as we've talked about, only complements what, the host team, Mike referred to it as a campus. What we're referring to, same concept as the Owego Fire Department footprint on North Avenue, with Central Fire Station being the anchor building on North Avenue. Going north, you got Station 2, and then this building would certainly be a cherry on top of the cake of the Owego Fire Department footprint on North Avenue. And certainly, as Mike talked about, the programs that we envision, we just don't want the steamer to collect dust and sit in the back corner and not be visible for the community, because the community should be really proud to be the sole owner from way back in 1866 until today to have the oldest operating steam fire engine in the country. So the other factor that we think is important is we look across the street from the proposed building location. You got Dave Seaver and Jody Seaver at the community shop. You go down a little bit farther north, you've got Aaron and Stacy Regal at the Rainbow. You loop around the corner, you've got the Petinatos at Mario's. And then you go south on North Avenue from the location, you got Sam Harris and Harris's Diner. We hope and we wish and we think that foot traffic to come and look at the building throughout the year and at these other events like the Strawberry Festival will bring in customers and business to those long established Owego businesses in the community. And, you know, I think from my vantage point, my perspective, the North Avenue corridor, at least in my history from being from Owego, has really been neglected and not had an opportunity or a project like this to really make that section of Owego shine. And literally, with our eternal flame concept, it will shine.
All right, thanks, Pat. All right, so we heard the answers to the 12 questions and then the additional 3. Does anybody have any discussion on those? Not, then I will read the County 239 review comments. So the county reads, this proposal is in harmony with the neighborhood, which is comprised mainly of mixed use, religious and commercial uses, and also the original fire station and the newer fire truck ground. The new structure will add to the aesthetics of the entire area and provide a logical transition to the new and adjacent village park, which is now in design as part of the downtown revitalization initiative. However, this proposal is not in compliance with requirements of the village's zoning code or flood damage prevention law in terms of elevation and construction of non-residential structures within FEMA's 1% annual change flood hazard area. The recommendation and the conditions that the applicant can obtain all required state, county, and local permits, licenses, and registrations. That the village zoning board of appeals consider and grant the applicant variances from the requirements for construction of non-residential structures within the floodplain contained in both the village code, zoning code 195-32 and the village flood damage prevention law 117-17. Recommendation from the county: after thorough consideration of the above, staff advises the county planning board recommend approval of the site plan review. After thorough consideration of the above, so staff advises the county planning board recommend approval of the site plan review and floodplain special use permit within the conditions noted. Does everybody agree with, have any issue or questions about the conditions or comments that the county had in their 239 review? No. Dick?
many sections here.
There's a
What
lot.
was, did we go over the one, we went over 117.19? What was 117-17?
I believe that's the requirements for non-residential structures in the floodplain. So it requires non-residential structures to either be built above base flood elevation or to be flood-proof up to base flood elevation. And so their variance request is rather than flood-proofing the property or bringing it up to above flood elevation, to allow it to sit below flood elevation with the flood vents, so that there's no.
I see, it's at the beginning of this thing. We go over. Okay. No, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing. I'm fine.
You're fine? All right, I'm good with those. So we need a motion to
A motion to approve the variance. And then, well, yeah, there's the special use permit too. Yeah, I think so. I mean, they both are gonna go together. Because he wants to separate one. We can do one thing. Because it's the flood use permit with the variance.
So would anybody like to make a motion on the flood use permit and the area there and
We got more stuff, but especially use permit. So for the special use permit, we also have to look at section 195-32. That talks about the elevation of the lowest floor having to be above the base flood elevation. They're getting a variance from that. No storage in tanks of liquid fuel or any other combustible material shall be permitted. And any other controls or restrictions which are deemed necessary to minimize or eliminate damage to the buildings and structures from flood water shall be required by the board. And last but not least, granting of special use permits. So the three-part has granting special use permits. Each special use permit must comply with regulations of the zoning code. Each special use permit shall be of such character, intensity, size, and location that will be in harmony with the orderly development of the district in which it is located. And 3, each special use permit may be located only in the district or districts permitted for such special use. And must be a finding that the use for which the special use permit is sought will not, in the circumstances of the particular case, under any condition that the board considers to be necessary, desirable, be injurious to the neighborhood, or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. Pretty much all that stuff has been addressed as part of the variance piece. But there was anything additional you had questions about those, now it's the time. Or if there's any conditions you want to discuss imposing.
Sharon, do you have any conditions you want to discuss? Answers to those questions? Dick, do you have any conditions you want to discuss, or are you good with the questions, or are you good at everything?
Obviously, there's a million different little things here, but I think fundamentally, I'm understanding what they're trying to do here.
Right.
And then we have the recommendation.
Probably couldn't list all 35.
And then, obviously, the planning board, when they met, did make a recommendation to us for approval of the area, for approval of the variance and a special use permit. So we just do those 3 questions.
We're good to go. We've hit all the requirements. Approval of the special, granting the special use permit with the variance for.
Anybody like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the special use permit with the variance of
Full conditions.
flood condition.
The base height elevation and floodproofing.
With base height elevations and flood.
Yeah, the variance from base flood elevation requirements, and floodproofing requirements.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion before we vote? No? Okay,
Everybody understand how the flood plans work? In terms of floodproofing, you familiar with that?
He spoke about last.
yeah. What's it now? All right, so we'll vote. Dick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Joyce is absent. And I'm a yes. Okay. Motion carries. That's
I'm good with it. Voters on it.
it.
Nope.
Okay. All right, Pat, then everything is approved, so I'll make sure I get this over to DPW.
Very good. We certainly appreciate it. We appreciate your time and the two meetings you all went through with this process, and certainly given the marathon meeting last night, I'm sure some of you are ready to go to bed. So thank you all again.
Okay. All right, anybody, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll
Anybody
second.
Second, okay.